Charleston, South Carolina had been on my travel bucket list for ages. My husband and I are both super big history nerds, and Charleston is chock full of history. Beautiful historic buildings and homes, cobblestone streets that mess up your ankles a little bit, but it is absolutely gorgeous. And not just for history nerds, but it's on the top of the American travel destinations list every year for the past decade. So I am not the only one who had Charleston high on my list. So you can probably find lots of these videos over here on YouTube. However, I hope I'm going to give you a little bit of a different perspective, my history nerd perspective, some things to do and not do, and not just things that are like the hot spots. We did not prioritize just a bunch of the fancy restaurants. We did want to eat. We are foodies, but restaurants are a really big thing in Charleston, and there's some that have a super long wait. We'll get to that in a minute. That's on the don't list. All right, so these are my things that I believe are must-dos in Charleston, and things that if I went back or were giving someone advice on a trip, like I'm literally doing right now, I'd tell them to skip. And there's one main thing that I tell everyone you absolutely must do. It was the highlight of our trip, so be sure you catch that. Like I said, we are big foodies. However, like I also said already, there's a lot of really popular restaurants in Charleston, so some of them have a really long wait. So for us, I just blanked on the name of it. There is a barbecue restaurant in Charleston that is also in Austin, Texas, and we live in Houston, Texas, and we have access to dozens of Texas barbecue restaurants, practically within walking distance. One, two, actually, literally within walking distance of my house. So when going to Charleston, Texas barbecue was not at the top of my list. South Carolina style barbecue certainly was. We really enjoyed two barbecue restaurants. There's more. We really enjoyed two of them. We went to Rodney Scott's. That was really good. It's pork. And then we went to Home Team Barbecue, and that was really good as well. And that one was close to a college and kind of had a college vibe, but I think we actually liked that one more than Rodney Scott's. And it was less of the touristy trap type place. So I'd actually recommend that one over Rodney Scott's, which is usually at the top of people's lists. Another must-do for us, or for me in particular, was trying things that are specific to Charleston and specific to South Carolina. So we got fried green tomatoes at Paige's Okra Grill, which was amazing. And that is actually on Sullivan's Island, not in Charleston proper. However, it's just a short drive over a bridge. When I was researching Charleston, I always weigh my options between a really centralized hotel versus renting a car and staying a little farther out. And when I was looking at the map, it seemed like the more affordable hotels on the other side of this bridge were really far away because they were not in the city of Charleston technically. And then I calculated it, I put in the GPS into Charleston proper, the center where all the things are, to this hotel I was looking at was a 15-minute or less drive. And living in Houston, I literally drive that far to the grocery store. So I was like, oh, book, yeah, let's save some money. And we were planning on renting a car anyway because we were going to some things that were not close into the middle of Charleston. So keep that in mind when you're booking also, that outside of the city versus inside of the city for your accommodations can save you a lot of money. And if you're going to do things where you need to drive anyway, you might as well save some money. Obviously, there were plenty of things within walking distance of each other. But another one of my must-dos is the Angel Oak Tree, and that was a drive. That one is free, and it's crazy. I'm going to throw some pictures in here. It was crazy. It was so cool to see, even though it's literally just a tree. But it's just a little drive away. I'm sure you can find other things in the area to do. We also went to the Charleston Tea Plantation, which was very interesting. It said it was the only tea garden, where they grow tea in the United States. The only one that exists in North America, I think, actually. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't realize all of our tea came from elsewhere. I don't actually drink much tea, but still very interesting. On that note, nature is a big thing. I mean, South Carolina is beautiful. The Carolinas are beautiful. It's along the coast. It's beautiful. Okay. But I didn't say that enough. It's beautiful there. There's gorgeous parks. The Battery is along the coast. It's at the point. I think that's actually what Battery means. I don't know. But it's along the point of Charleston. It's kind of shaped like this. It's like a peninsula. It's a peninsula. A tiny one. And the Battery and Battery Park are at the edge of it, and it's these beautiful homes, and you walk along the waterfront, and it's gorgeous. But there's a ton of other parks in Charleston, with or without playgrounds, depending on your family and what your needs are. But definitely spending some time outdoors is a must-do when in the area. Depending on the time of year you're going, you can even hit up the beach. So we went spring break. So middle of March is when spring break is around here. I know some people it's Easter, so it could be late into April. Ours is always mid-March, St. Patrick's Day is always during spring break. So it was a little chilly several days of our trip. We did go catch sunset at the beach a couple of times, but there was no getting in the water. Maybe if we were Canadian and it seemed warm to us, there were some people getting in the water, and I have a feeling they were northerners and not southerners. Definitely not coastal southerners like us. It was way too cold for the water for us. But if you were there in the summertime, definitely beach time should be on your list. If you are a history lover like my husband and I, you absolutely must go to Fort Sumter. It is a ferry ride, which is super cool in and of itself, even if you just take the ferry ride over to Fort Sumter. It's really cool. But it is the fort where the first shots of the American Civil War were fired. So that is very historically significant. And I just like forts. I think they're really cool. I like cannons. There's really cool cannons. And it's cool that it's like out in the middle of the water. It's an island. We did go during COVID time, so I'm not sure if this played into it. We were there in 2021. And when we got off the ferry, everyone went directly to the gift shop. Like hardly any people were actually exploring the fort. To me, that is like honestly stupid. Like it's stupid to spend your vacation time and on a limited tour, like you have to leave, you have to get back on the ferry boat at a certain time, and you're gonna spend your time in the gift shop. Like there was a line out the door. And I think that's because there was a limited amount of people that were allowed to go in. That makes sense. But why? Like, do you really need a magnet and a coffee mug that says Fort Sumter? Like, no, you don't. Not really a point there other than if you're just gonna go into the gift shop, don't waste your money on tickets. Don't waste your money paying to go there, right? If you're a history nerd and you actually want to see the fort, if you're like into military history and things like that, if you've got kids that are learning American history, go explore the fort. You can see cannons, that's always cool, right? You can pretend you're a pirate, I almost said pioneer. I suppose you could pretend that also. But Fort Sumter is a must if you are a history nerd. There's also tons of beautiful houses you can tour. You can tour old plantation homes if you're into that. They definitely do a good job of teaching you true history and the reality of it, where these are museums that are accurate and not like monuments, you know what I'm saying? And then there's just regular gorgeous houses that you can tour. They're really cool. But the number one thing that I tell everyone that's going to Charleston that you absolutely must do, hands down highlight of our trip, so much fun, is a pirate tour. It was so fun. And it was mostly adults in our group. I think there was 2 kids. 1 kid? 2? I think there were 2. I think there were 2 kids. The rest of us were adults. Great time. So you are led by a pirate. A pirate leads you on this guided walking tour. So it is a walking tour. Like I said, it's a small downtown area. And they take you around, show you buildings where pirates used to hang out. They tell you the pirate lore, the pirate history of the area. And it was hands down, like I said, the highlight of our trip, absolutely. The guy could have been in regular clothes and it still would have been great. But the fact that they're dressed up like a pirate is extra cool. And you were like really on the streets where pirates walked. Like true pirates, the real historical pirate, like Blackbeard. And on it, okay? And they did a really, really good job, and it was pretty affordable. It was a very affordable tour. If you were going to do a guided tour, this is the one I recommend. Because, moving on to my don't list, I don't recommend taking a non-pirate guided tour. There are, oh my gosh, I forgot to look it up. Hold, please. Okay, I looked it up. It's called Free Tours by Foot. There are free audio tours you can download. You can download an app, you can download this guided tour, and you can listen to it and go at your own pace. And A, it's much cheaper, but also you go at your own pace. You get to walk around and explore and see all the sights and things, hear the history for a much lower price, and you can truly walk around and absorb the vibe. Like Charleston is just a vibe. I know that slang is like going out of style, but this is not slang, this is accurate. Charleston is a vibe. It just, the whole place, the whole city just is like laid back and charming. Charleston charming, that's what it is. That's the best way to describe Charleston. It is so charming. And literally just wandering around the beautiful streets and the beautiful homes and the beautiful buildings was my favorite. Second favorite part. The pirate tour was my favorite part. So I don't recommend going on a guided tour. That is a don't for me. And we did not do that. So we did this walking tour once, and then another time just wandered around the streets. And literally that was the highlight. So this guided tour will take you to the Battery. It'll take you past really historic places. You don't have the tickets to go inside, but you certainly could. That's the other highlight of doing the self-guided tour. You can pause, go buy tickets, go into the museum, go buy tickets, go into the old historic home, whatever you want to do. Stop and get lunch. Whatever it is that you want to do. I lost my train of thought talking about food that is specific to Charleston. I mentioned fried green tomatoes at Paige's Ochre Grill. That's literally, if I were going to list my 5 favorite foods I've had on vacation, which I'm going to do in a video, in an upcoming video, subscribe for that. That would be on my list, high on my list. It's probably like 3rd, but still. So that was great. But another thing that is specific to Charleston, and I guess South Carolina, is she crab soup. And I do believe there's a season for it, so you'll have to look that up before you go. But we got some of that and it was delicious. So that is one of those things that is specific to the area, and that's what I like to do when I travel. I'm not gonna go grab food that I can eat at home. I don't get pizza. Unless like you're in like New York, Chicago, somewhere like that. You're gonna get pizza, okay? That's what you should do. But somewhere that's not known for pizza, I'm not gonna go get pizza. Why am I gonna waste my time and money eating pizza on vacation when I can eat pizza at home? No. So she crab soup also on my to-do list, not the to-don't list. What is on my to-don't list, not to-do list, is waiting in really long lines for food. There are many places in Charleston where there are going to be lines out the door. We did wait to go into Page's Okra Grill. We skipped a place called Vicious Biscuit, and then we also waited at a restaurant called Bowen's Island. I had to look it up to remember the name. And it's a little bit of a drive, and it is super popular. It's supposed to be great for sunset. You have to arrive before it opens, and there was a line out the door, and when we got there was no seating. There was nowhere to sit. It was also kind of cold because it was March, so that definitely put a damper on our visit. And yes, it was beautiful, and we kind of caught the sunset from outside in the line. But honestly, I wish we hadn't gone. I mean, the food was fine, but it was like fried seafood. It was fine, but not worth what we waited for it. So if you're gonna go there, research less busy times. Maybe even call the restaurant and be like, hey, if I'm gonna come, like, what are your tips? How early do I have to be there? Things like that. So put some research into any other popular restaurants you're going to, or just skip it. Find something comparable that's not like the hot restaurant at the moment. So another kind of random thing, but I noticed and would not recommend you do. So we did our first walking tour. We did the guided tour, and then, like I said, my favorite part was just wandering around. But we did that audio tour on Friday when we were there. I think we flew in on a Thursday. And the downtown area was like packed. There were people wandering around, business people, like they were working. This is the downtown area, that's where their businesses are. And it was really crowded, and I was trying to get pictures of the famous Rainbow Row. There's a ton of people, a ton of cars. When we went again that weekend and we're just wandering around for fun, it was dead. And you would think it would be the other way around, but it's their business district. So people were there on a weekday working for business. So I would recommend exploring the downtown area, the business area, on a weekend, which again sounds backwards, but much less busy on the weekend. And I got better pictures of Rainbow Row with no people in it, which is important when you have a content business online. Those pictures are important. In general, what I always summarize for anyone not to do on any trip, like I touched on already, is anything you can do somewhere else. So if you do have a limited amount of time and you can go to the beach at home, or like you've gone on other beach vacations, I would skip the beach. If you're not gonna be in Charleston for very long and there's all these other unique things you can do, these historical sites, things like that, I would skip it. We didn't do the aquarium. Like I said, we skipped several restaurants, specifically Texas barbecue that we can eat at home. Things like that, we skipped. Anything that is only in that location is at the top of my list. So the historic homes, Fort Sumter, all those things are at the top of my list, and they should be at the top of your list. Again, don't do things you can do at home, except maybe like the parks and stuff like that, especially if you have little kids. Totally understandable. But every park is unique, right? And not every park is going to be on the water. So that is unique to Charleston. But that about sums it up. So if I was talking to you one-on-one and you were like, hey, I'm going to Charleston, what should I do? I'd be like, book yourself a pirate tour right away. Decide where and what you're going to eat and when. You do need to decide when, do some research into busy and less busy times, maybe even call the restaurant directly. And then I would decide any other tickets you're going to buy. So we also did tour a couple of the museums, and they're fine. They weren't the highlight of my trip. Like I said, walking around exploring was the highlight of my trip. But I would skip anything that's repetitive. So we did, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it. Pause again. Okay, I got it. We did the Exchange Museum. I'm off kilter. We did the Exchange Museum, that's what we did. And half of it was really cool. The guided part in the basement was cool. And then wandering around upstairs, the exhibits were a little boring. And I'm a person that loves museums. And I read all the things. And it was kind of cool to be somewhere where George Washington had walked. That was cool. I've now been to a few places in Philadelphia where he's been too. So I'm like, ooh, cool, George Washington was here. But other than that, it was eh. So definitely do research into what museums offer, what the exhibits are. I would probably do it again if I like had extra time just for the basement part, the dungeon and jail part. But it would not be at the top of my list. So definitely do research into that. But overall, Charleston is a great location. Like there is a reason it is the top of everyone's list, the top destination in the United States for like however many years running. It is absolutely gorgeous. It is so cute. Like I said, so charming. There's a ton of things to do. There is a children's museum. There are tons of parks. There are the beaches. So it's very family friendly. There are also a lot of like bachelorette parties, things like that. So it can definitely be a destination for like eating and drinking and having lots of fun. Also, like I said, definitely a great history nerd destination. It can be a great destination for like retirees, couples without children. Lots of options. I highly recommend it. If you were debating going to Charleston, do it. So like, if that's what you get from this video, go. If that's what you were looking for, if that's the answer you're looking for, is should I go to Charleston? Yes, is the answer. All right, like I said, I've got lots more videos coming up about my travels and about travel recommendations and all sorts of things. If you are a foodie, be sure to subscribe because that is a highlight of a lot of my travel videos because I too am a foodie. And then the other side of my channel is all of my tips, tricks, and hacks to save time, money, and sanity when it comes to feeding your family. So if that is Up your alley also. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and follow me over on Instagram. I'll put the links in the description. Until next time.